But here's the flip side of that. Why is the Bank of Canada lowering their rates so much more than we anticipated? We're having some challenges with our economy and what's going on, especially with these looming tariffs that have been implemented, not implemented, changing. And talk to me here about small business optimism in Canada.
Yeah, I mean, small business optimism has fallen off a cliff really to 25-year lows. And if we go over to the next chart, we can see just how low it's come. The last time, even during the recession or the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, business confidence went down to around 45. We're down to 25 on that confidence scale. So it's really fallen off a cliff here. And that's having a lot of stress on what businesses, because businesses don't know what their input costs are going to be in the coming months, days. So they don't know, how much are we going to have to increase our prices? Are we going to need to lay people off? So there's a lot of uncertainty there for them. And we're also seeing that when it comes to buyers as well. They're thinking about that too. Is my job still safe? Is my employer going to let me go because they're having less confidence in the market right now?
Yeah, and I was just looking before we started our show today. The buyer confidence Canada-wide hasn't been updated there since February. We did see a small uptick in February. Now it was very, very small, but we're still down from our last peak there in August, and it dropped quite a bit, bottoming out there in December. And so I'm curious to see what comes now with March, because even that little uptick was a little confusing to me because it's not being reflected in the market that we're seeing. It's not being reflected on these charts. It's definitely not being reflected in the news. So I do anticipate that we'll see that roll over again towards the downside.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Now, when we're talking about future price versus wage increase plans, so here's a survey that was taken across, 1,065 responses across these small businesses. So in the next year, how do you expect average prices to change? And how do you expect your average wages to change? So Matt, talk to me about how we're seeing this deviation here at the end of where we're currently standing in comparison to years past.
Yeah, so if we see the dotted line in the middle, that's kind of the average. That's the historic average of this chart. So typically, we fluctuate between 2.2 on the average price plans and 1.9% on the average wage plans. So we can see the wages have actually come down to its historical average. But the interesting part of this graph is the 3.7% that we're seeing average price plans increase. So typically, if the average is 2.2 over the years, and really this got skewed because of what happened in the COVID pandemic, driving it up to 4.9%. So it stayed above that mark for quite some time. So realistically, that price should be more in line with the 1.9%. So we're heading up to 3.7%. So we might actually start to see inflation come into the economy as these businesses start to increase their costs of their goods and their services.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it's trending to, right? We don't have our markers in here, but I'd say we're at least 2021, 2022 levels in terms of where we're future pricing some of these business products. And like you said, there's a big gap that's starting to form now between our anticipated wages and where those prices are. And
the problem with this too is if it goes back up to the 4%, it's going to take a year or two or three to finally get back down to that 2% line. It rarely just falls off a cliff. So it will take time to start to adjust back to that. So that's another unfortunate part about what we're seeing right now is that these increases might last a little bit longer.
Yeah. Well said. This is an important one to note because we do have a federal election coming up, and we just want to be mindful of what we've done GDP-wise for our country in terms of how we're all doing. What kind of production are we sending out here? And to be honest, when I first looked at this chart, Matt, I saw the green highlight. And I'm like, oh, that must be Canada because, of course, that's what we're talking about. But no, that's USA. And then you got to keep coming down our list. And you find us down here pretty close to the bottom with only a 1.4% increase from 2015 to where we are now. Now, we need to talk a little bit about why this could be skewed, and a lot of that's through immigration. But nonetheless, our output is pretty abysmal from where we should be for the nation that we are.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple big factors. I'd say the two biggest factors are that the population growth. We've had one of the biggest population growths out of a lot of the G7 countries, out of a lot of countries, to be honest with you. We had such a rip to the upside for immigration that, it diluted the per capita figures. So that had a strain on it. But we've also got a stagnant productivity growth in this country. And that's what's weighing on it as well. And a lot of that has to do with, just how much money's gone into the housing market. It's been one of the biggest drivers for GDP in this country over the last decade.
Yeah, well,
and also business investment. We're not seeing enough business investment roll into some R&D that this country desperately needs, other than just focusing on one industry, which has been, like I said, the real estate market.
yeah, and then talking about like our major trading partner there, the U.S., how we rely so heavily on them. I think that one of the best things that all this tariff talk has brought up is that we do need to diversify with our trading partners and not rely so heavily on one. We talk about this in our business a lot. If you're relying everything on one contract, like one big subsection of your business, you're exposed to a lot of risk if anything ever was to happen with that one type of client. And that's kind of where we are now in terms of what Canada is going through economically with what's going on in the States.
I think there'll be a lot of trade in between the provinces now. Hopefully that opens up the border, because there are quite a bit of restrictions on that. And also, hopefully, whoever the next prime minister is, they start to form new relationships with new trading partners so that our products are going around the world.
Yeah.